All right, let's get going. In this short video, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what is aerodynamics, talk about some of the basic concepts of aerodynamics. So if we were to look in the dictionary, what we might find is a definition of aerodynamics, which indicates it's a study or a field, right? So it's a field of study. And what that field of study is concerned with is the motion of air and the properties of that air as it moves. So the properties of moving air. And specifically, a lot of aerodynamics is focused on the interaction of this moving air with a body. So in this case, when we use the term body, we really mean an aircraft or a spacecraft or a building or any other body that might be present in that flow field. So let's take a quick look at what this really means. So let's assume that we had an airplane wing, and I'm just going to sketch out a wing here. And let's focus in not on the whole 3D aspect of this wing, because we'll get to that later in a future video. But let's take a look at the 2D depiction of this wing. So if I were to slice an aircraft wing, I might see something that looks like this airfoil here. And I'm just going to make this dotted here a little bit so that we can see it okay. And then what I'm going to be interested in is how does the flow or the air interact with that particular body. So I'm going to draw my streamlines here, or my flow path lines here, and they should be really nice and smooth for this particular flow. And I'm going to go up around this airfoil here and kind of depict where the flow would go if it was going around this wing, like this. And I'm going to go also below the wing because the air flows on both sides. And what you can see is as I draw these, you get a kind of a nice flow pattern, and you may have seen these before in pictures or in videos of wind tunnel testing. But we can see this kind of pattern of the airflow. And this really is the aerodynamics of the wing. So it's this idea of what are the properties of the moving air. So if we look at this and go in a bit more depth, what I'm going to suggest is, what if we picked a certain point around this airfoil? Let's say right up top here. What we might be interested in here is what is the properties of the flow at that location. And I'm going to say, take a moment and think about what properties might be important at that location. So as we do that, we might find that the pressure of the air at that location, which I'm going to denote with a little p, is important. So I'm going to actually make sure this is a p, like that. We might think that the density were important, or how the density changes if this was a fast supersonic type flow or transonic flow. And we might also be interested in the temperature changes at that location, t. Another thing we might be interested in is the velocity of the flow at different locations. So I'm just going to put little vectors here into my flow, indicating what the velocities might look like. So in certain locations I might have faster velocities or larger magnitudes, and in other locations I might have smaller magnitudes. And these are important quantities to the aerodynamicist because it helps understand how that flow field is going. So the question is, what do we want to know from all of this at the end of the day? So at the end of the day, what we're really interested in is not just what are these properties, and I'm just going to write velocity up here so I don't forget about it. So I'm going to put a V here with velocity, like this. And it's not just the properties themselves, but we're also interested in what those integrated properties might be producing as well. So in this case, what we might be looking at is, what is the lift of the wing, right? So we want to keep this wing in the air. So how much lift, L, is the wing producing? And how much drag is it producing, D, like this? And then is it producing any moments as well? So is there a moment also that's being produced? M. And one of the key pieces of an aerodynamicist's work is understanding and calculating and predicting these forces as part of the aircraft design process and how those forces change with respect to time. So this is a really quick snapshot of what aerodynamics is all about. We'll take a look at some examples in person, but this is a quick introduction. All right, hope you've enjoyed it.